Today I'm going to compose a brief video here for Stereo by David Cronenberg. His first feature, he was at the University of Toronto at this time. It was filmed there, and it was shot on his, I can't remember what the name of the camera is called. Yeah, it was a Bolex, apparently, which made too much noise, and so he opted to have the film be silent as they were filming it, even though there's mimed dialogue scenes. Later on, a kind of satirical voiceover narration was added, where purported followers of the Dr. Stringfellow talk about the research subjects as the actors were intended to be. It's somewhat proto-scanners. You have these young people, and they're being encouraged to engage in these kind of erotic experiments at this facility in order to test the boundaries of their telepathic abilities. A very superbly shot film. Cronenberg, he did all of the photography himself, the direction, editing, and I think it's a spectacular piece of work as far as DIY garage filmmaking goes. This is almost as impressive as it gets, in my opinion. We can talk about this film narratively, how effectively funny or intellectually satisfying it is. I think it really sates my curiosity. I love this era of the stranger sides of the late 60s and early 70s counterculture, where they're really kind of exploring totally off-the-wall possibilities in terms of the frontiers of human experience. This is the era where you have things like R.D. Laing's experimental therapy, or some of these strange institutes popping up in California. Like, it's just such an odd time. And Stereo really embodies this. I think Cronenberg must have been adjacent to some of this while he was at the University of Toronto. Yeah, it's really just it's ruthlessly fascinating to me, frankly. I would argue that this film's existence is more than justified by its spectacular visual composition in and of itself. How I'm reading over IMDb reviews for the film, and there are some positive reviews here and there, but some of the people claiming that this film is boring and a travesty, and even fans of Cronenberg claim to be disappointed upon viewing this early work. It's kind of heartbreaking to me that they couldn't appreciate this degree of visual symmetry and an understanding of space within a feature film. It's just so, I don't understand. Like, if they had made that film, surely they would look at it and say, oh wow, like, I was able to do something with that. But when it's, delivered to them on their screen, made by someone they don't know, some magical wizard film director, it's a real matter of entertain me. And it doesn't, so all the work that goes into the film just gets dismissed. I find that a travesty, frankly. Think about it. If someone that you knew, if you're, a next door neighbor who you associated with, or a friend of yours, a spouse, arrived to you and said, here's this film I made, and it was Stereo by David Cronenberg, you would think perhaps you might not be so inclined toward the narrative content of the film, and the presentation of the narrative as voiceover and as pseudoscientific and bizarre metaphysical jargon. You could at least undeniably appreciate, wow, you have a fantastic visual understanding with your camera and of lighting. Some of the images in here are bewilderingly affective. This is astonishing. But because it's, it's like from an industry, meant to entertain, it just gets dismissed. It's quite unfortunate. Few student films are superior to this one, in my opinion. One that plausibly definitely is Naoki Kato's The Bow Q from 2007. That's better than most films ever made. Watch my video on that film if you'd like. But yeah, Stereo by Cronenberg. One of the most fascinating debut features of all time. Check out his two earlier shorts. I don't talk about short films very much, although Cronenberg's two earlier shorts, From the Drain and... what's the other one called? Transfer, that's what it's called. Transfer from 1966 and From the Drain from 67, just for clarification. Yeah, I don't talk about short films very much on this program. It's just because I'm just not as interested in I'm not as seduced by the experience of a short film. It's just a superficial preference, frankly. But I love getting sucked into, like a minimum 45-minute feature film. Like that's just enrapturing to me. I can't get enough of that. But like the short film, I'm just kind of I can appreciate it, but particularly if they're like closer to 45 minutes, if they're like 30 something minutes in length. Your La Jetés or your Whistle and I'll Come to You. Go to YouTube. If it's on YouTube, watch Whistle and I'll Come to You. That's possibly the finest ghost story ever filmed that isn't the Stone Tape. Oh my god. Dude, check out Whistle and I'll Come to You. That's a tangent, but that's heartbreaking. Anyway. But yeah, I'm a huge David Cronenberg fan. I think he was the first film director who I saw all of their filmography. And that has more to do with that, his filmography was relatively available to view as opposed to some other directors. And I'd seen all of his films that were released at that time. By the time I was 18, actually. Yeah, even stuff like Fast Company and Butterfly, I didn't like everything, and I still don't, unfortunately. But most things I do. Most of Cronenberg's output I like. And what's the question that may be on one's mind? What did you think of 2021/22's Crimes of the Future? I haven't watched it yet. That's the only Cronenberg film I haven't seen at this point. I didn't want to see it in a cinema because I'm an antisocial git. Well, no, not necessarily. Yeah, pretty much actually. That's fair to say. But no, yeah, I'll wait. Like I don't. Something slightly bugs me about watching. I'm jaded, so watching. Generally speaking, but not always. I make exceptions if I really, 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 really want to watch the film, like Dune last year. Very attached to the novel. I just have to see that, and if it's a film that's got so much hype around it, sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to see it. I don't want people to ask me, "What'd you think of it?" and just so they can tell me what they thought of it. That's a horrible thought. Don't. I just don't. I'm just not. Sometimes I just don't. I don't like participating in or potentially cultivating a hype machine if I don't have to. I just think that hype machines can be destructive to art/film culture, and I don't think I even need to explain why that is, so I'm just going to leave it there. So, anyway, Stereo by Cronenberg is a quite brilliant film in my opinion. I'd highly recommend it if you're so inclined. But in any case, have the best possible day wherever you are. I hope you are as well as you can be. Thanks again.